W3JOE. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are back for another episode of Cup of Joe with Web3 Joe. That's Web3 Job Ops and Events, your hub, home base, headquarters for all things Web3 talent and recruitment. They power these spaces. We're here every Wednesday, every Friday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, sitting down with leaders in the space to talk about how you can land your dream job over coffee. The coffee is optional, but we appreciate you stopping by, listening either way, whether you're catching it live here on X, the recording here on X, or the recording on Spotify or YouTube. We appreciate it either way. And today we got a very special guest, none other than Mr. Fred Builds. He's the growth and innovation lead at Pizza Ninjas. He's also a contributor to Bonk Radio, also just a dope person to know in the space. So, Fred, thank you so much for pulling up, bro. Excuse my little bit of a sore throat I got, but really happy to have you. Happy Friday. How you living?
I got you, brother. How are you doing, man? Thanks for having me. Really cool to tap back in and connect. It's
I'm
been a
good,
long
man.
minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. How you been?
Good, bro. I kind of took a sabbatical after Melania launched a freaking coin, and I don't regret it, to be honest.
That was a good time. That was a good time for a sabbatical.
I
Good.
think back then crypto was a little different, and I think Kaito had just started the whole InfoFi situation around that time as well. Nowadays, there's not a week that goes by without another InfoFi platform popping up. I think metas have changed a lot, man. A lot has changed, and I love it. I wouldn't change it for a thing. I think there's no such thing as retiring from this industry for me. Also by choice, right? I think like if you enter crypto, since we're talking job opportunities, I wanna put out this disclaimer. I want to say, don't enter if you're not ready to burn all the boats. Cut the cord. I think it's really hard to go back into a life of fiat jobbing, as I like to call it. If you got a fiat job, you're gonna have to put on a mask. You're gonna maybe wear clothes that you usually don't wear. You're gonna maybe have to say things that you don't mean. But if you are orange pilled and crypto pilled, you come in with your best foot forward. You come in as yourself. You can wear whatever you like and you do you. And I think that's the main thing I want people to get away from the talk today is you got to express yourself 100x more. Whatever is inside, express it 100x more.
Oh man, you're not wasting no time, Fred. You're jumping off the rip with bangers. Okay, go ahead. Yeah,
Of course, bro.
I
What were
agree
you
though.
expecting when you got me here, bro? I don't care. I don't care if it's 1,000 people in a room or if it's two or three. To me, it's like you got to come with the heat.
No, I expect nothing less from you. I expect nothing less from you, and I'm sure that the insights will keep coming throughout the chat. And no, that's exactly why I invited you on because I know you got a ton of game and you've been around the block. So this is the conversation that we like to have. So to get us going, I did my best to give an introduction for you, but in your own words, could you let us know who you are, what you do, and how you got started doing it?
100%, man. I joined crypto, so I'll give you guys kind of the origin story before I tell you guys what I do today. I think 2020 was the year where I realized, whoopsie, the normal world, quote unquote, took a left turn, and I don't identify with a lot of the stuff that's happening in the normal world. And then at that time, I read a book called The Bitcoin Standard, which I highly recommend, was the book that orange pilled me into Bitcoin. And then from then on, I took the pill deeper and deeper, right? So NFTs came along. All of a sudden, my portfolio, it was at the time where you didn't have to have any skill. I like pressed a few buttons, and then my portfolio was up six figures. And then you rock up to work with a little difference in pep in your step. All of a sudden you tell your boss, to watch
Watch your
his
mouth.
mouth. At that time, I just kind of said, "Hey, look, I was actually working for the Prince of the Netherlands at the time. This was also a fun story, but they were, of course, super woke. They wanted me to shake their hand, not even shake their hand because it was the pandemic, right? They were giving each other elbows. You guys remember that? People were giving each other elbows during the pandemic. That's the freaking weirdest thing you've ever seen. I don't even want to think back to that. But yeah, so I quit. And due to NFTs, I joined some amazing communities in the Cosmos ecosystem and did the whole rotation. I think if you're just getting started in crypto, the full rotation of being a collab manager, a Discord mod, running up Twitter replies, all the full kind of spectrum of all Web3 jobs. If you can rotate into those functions, that will serve you very well because you will understand everything that's necessary to grow a project. And yeah, so I did that because of NFTs. It enabled, if you have the same PFP as someone, you're just, one message away from a call and one call away from basically a work opportunity that's paid. And that's what I did. And then all of a sudden, I noticed some things that crypto was still missing. And a lot of it was in this kind of InfoFi era before it was called InfoFi. So I started a product to scratch my own itch as a marketeer, which was called Super Spaces. And we basically recorded over 3 million spaces and analyzed data and provided a growth platform really for creators on spaces to grow. Ended up working with Polygon, Binance, through that to help them level up their spaces game and organize roundtables. And then I got in touch with a lot of cool creators, be that from the ones that maybe are not in the greatest esteem of the public at the moment, but still they're big, like Mario Nafal, right? You can you can say what you want about him, but he's doing the work, and you got to respect that. And yeah, also other creators that launch their spaces, we really help them show them, okay, how can they go from 100 listeners to 1,000 to 10,000, etc. And yeah, that project didn't go further because I found out my co-founder was a was a fraud, was a rugger. So I stopped working with him. And it was roughly at that time that I got talking more with Trevor, who started Pizza Ninjas. And he was kind of saying, hey, can we get some spaces hosts into the community? I helped him out with that. And then he gifted me my first Ninja as kind of a thank you for the work that I've been doing for community curation. And then we went off. We just, started working more and more together. We did a creator boot camp together. Brian was also part of it. And at some point it was clear, like, ninjas are too close to my heart. And I need to, come on more in a more full-time capacity. And that's what happened. Basically started 2 months ago with them. And yeah, it's been amazing. It's been amazing fun. We just launched I mean, it's so dynamic every week. You got to prepare for that as well in crypto. It's You're never gonna have the type of work where you clock in and clock out at a certain time. It's much more dynamic, 24/7. You need to be proactive in managing your time and letting people know what the expectations are. I think the number one trait is like being proactive in crypto. It's the number one thing that people rate. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of wrap it up with that, wrap my origin story up with that. If you're proactive in crypto and you show people value, you will be rewarded, whether that's through things like InfoFi or whether that's simply by people that recognize that you're putting your best foot forward.
Dude, I could not agree more. And I've said it a million times at this point, but I just feel like here in Web3, the opportunity that is presented to you is really incomparable to any other industry if you are exactly what you just said, proactive, and you actually want to be here, right? Like, and also like a few other things you touched on. I really appreciated the way you phrased it at the beginning of your intro. You said if you have the same PFP as somebody, and I don't even think that's a necessary prerequisite, but it helps a ton. But if you do, you're one message away from one call, and then you're one call away from an opportunity, right? And maybe it's paid right away, maybe it's not, but that then you're one step away from a paid opportunity. So That's like a really, I love simple things, and the way you phrase that is really easy to digest, really easy to get your head around, and so freaking real, bro. So I appreciate you touching on that. Also, I had no idea that you were behind Super Spaces. That's amazing. I was a big fan of Super Spaces. I've been doing spaces since forever that I've been in this space, and it's always been my bread and butter. And I remember Super Spaces. It was super cool. It was like one of the first tools that I saw that was actually taking the time to give you some kind of analytics, because we know X just doesn't really give you much of anything. I mean, it barely even saves the spaces. It actually doesn't save the spaces; it deletes them. So, Super Spaces, amazing, great resume you've had that led you to this point now with Pizza Ninjas. I mean, wow, like, you know, obviously super notable team. Love Trevor. And oh, you worked with a rugger. I think that's a rite of passage
That's a rite of
in
passage,
crypto.
bro.
Yeah.
It's all because you're mentioning resume. Resumes don't exist in Web3. You will never have someone ask you for a resume. It doesn't exist. Your resume is your X account. If you don't have that built up, then you got work to do. Even to the point where it's like before you get a long-term gig, I would actually just take, like, as I said, like smaller gigs, use those to connect with people, build your tribe, engage with them. And then all the like, even if the projects fail, which startups already have a high failure rate, Web3 has even 10x more failure rate than startups, but all of that is just like badges on your, on your vest, on your war vest. You got the tuition fees paid at some point. You've worked with XYZ project that rugged, and as long as you keep your reputation clean, that you can like be on a space and tell people what you did and let them judge, and then let that be clear that it was nothing nefarious, I think then you're going to be fine, right? And yeah, just hopefully accumulate more dubs along the way.
So for people listening, by the way, shout out Brian, shout out Tome. I see you guys in the audience, and shout out to anybody listening to the recording. What advice would you have in terms of sending that first DM, sending that message, and creating opportunity for yourself?
I mean, I'm going to be very practical. I disagree with how 99% of the space sends DMs because it's really inefficient. I think people start with saying, "Hey, GM, hope you're well." That's already like 6 words wasted. Not wasted, but you want the 6 first words to hit. Like, you see, if you click on messages right now, right, in your Twitter, you see how the conversation has a preview. Like I think it's like the first 5 words with someone of a message that you see as the preview. That needs to be like kind of like the subject line of your email. It needs to be as concise and straight to the point as possible. Like with the opportunity for the other person. So frame it as whatever the opportunity is for the other person. If they have a job opening, then your first words shouldn't be GM, hope you're well. They should be application, such and such role. Uh, just make it that such that people immediately know why they would double click on that, right? So I think that's the first thing. And then like use spacing in your text so that it's easy on the eye. Don't use a lot of words. You're dealing not with the people in society already. Their nervous system is already fried because of 9 hours per day on social media. But in crypto, that is even like 10x. So you want to not use difficult words, get straight to the point, use few words, and make it really easy for the person to take the next step. As easy as you can make it, you know?
That's great advice, bro. Especially, I love your perspective on treating those first few words as a subject line, because that's a fact. I mean, GM, hope you're well is cool. It's fine. It's human sounding enough. Depending on how you use it, it can sound kind of robotic as well. So you got to watch
Yeah,
that.
it's
But
it's not bad. It's just not going to
yeah,
convert higher than you
right.
need to. Like,
Right, exactly. And then that leads to like your next point of like make it as easy as possible. for them to respond in the way that you want them to respond, right? So like whatever you got to do to minimize that friction, make it simple, make it clear, sound human, and don't don't underestimate the power of that hook, right? Of those initial, that preview messages, because we all know we get tons of DMs every single day, and especially in the world of crypto, we all should at least, and a lot of us do have our antennas up and our radars up when we get those DMs, right? Because how many of us at least know somebody that's been compromised through the DM? So great points. Now you've gotten, that's the one message. I mean, let's pick it apart the way you said one message to one call to one opportunity. So you got the message, you got the response. Now you got the call in the books. For people listening, what advice would you have for people to go into that call and be successful in terms of exemplifying their value they could add to that team?
I mean, ideally, if you can show up with some proof of work, then I think that's killer, right? So, because Web3 is permissionless, so you don't need to ask anyone for permission to do work. You can always help someone get engagement, help someone spread the mission. So, let's say you wrote a thread that got 10,000 impressions before the call on their project, or you did a video walkthrough of their UX, or you roast their UX and uncover some flaws and have suggestions on how to improve those. Yeah, I mean, who's not going to accept that as like at least some good effort, some valid effort? So put yourself in the other person's shoes and think how you can improve their process, and I think then you're off to a really good start. And the rest is hygiene factors, like make sure you got a good setup, maybe invest in the mic, invest maybe in a camera, your appearance on a camera. I like personally, I have a bit of a different take. I like it being memorable of an appearance. I think yesterday I was on a stream, I was in my bathrobe. Um, it was like Thursday, right? Thursday is my ice bath day. So most of the day I'm in my gown, and people were talking about it during the stream. But then I'm like, mission accomplished because you're talking about it. Here I am. I'm standing out in the sea of NPCs. I'm not boring. You're talking about something that I'm doing. I win. That's basically it. So if you can set yourself up with something that's like unique, uniquely yours, I think that's great.
You're a funny dude, man. I need to check out more of your streams. The bathrobe is funny, and you're completely right. Uh, the worst thing you can do, you have the marketing brain too. The worst thing you can be or the worst opinion someone can have of you as a brand is like no opinion, right? It's just indifference. You want them to feel something, and that means some people are going to passionately fuck with you, and some people are going to passionately not. But being in the middle is the last place you want to be. So
Oh, dude,
couldn't agree more.
100%. You phrased
Yes,
it really nicely there. It's like you want 50% of people to love you. You don't care about the 50% that hate you, but the people who feel something about you need to feel strongly about it, right? I think that's when you see the best marketers in the world, they also use that principle. And yeah, man, I mean, how, because we have a reptile brain, right? There's a part of our brain that's like really old. And if you get on a call and it's like the same repetitive, like, hey, Jim, I work this job. This is what I do. Now tell me about what you do. And it's like really like this kind of boring, repetitive stuff. Our brain kind of like just clocks out and we're just not there with our full consciousness anymore. But, if you rock up and you have a freaking, I don't know what. Sometimes I rock up. I have a machete with me in my call, because I use that to open my coconuts, and I tell them, "Fuck yeah, we're in war mode. This is the war room. I'm happy that you're here today with me. Let's discuss. Let's go. Let's move shit. Let's make shit happen." You best believe the person will remember that you're the crazy guy with the machete, and then at least they're not gonna forget you. That's the best thing that can happen to you.
at least they're not gonna. That's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, man, and you got a very unique energy about you too, and I think it comes from time of just like, I mean, it's you, but also just time spent with so like having so many conversations and collaborating with people and just becoming comfortable in your own skin. And I think like it's a refreshing reminder to people, and you mentioned it at the beginning of this conversation of like Web3 is a place. I mean, it's unfortunate that the whole world isn't necessarily like this, but Web3 is absolutely a place where like you can come as yourself, and people do every single day. And we rock these funny JPEGs, and we yap on spaces all day, and we're Web3, and you can come exactly as you are, and you absolutely should. And that, especially in a world that is getting slowly taken over by AI, is one of the most refreshing and bullish things you can do and be in this space. So I think that's something worth touching on as well. How about when it comes to negotiating? This is something that a lot of people don't even want to talk about. It's something that I can admit that I'm not very good at myself. What advice do you have for people listening in terms of when that offer is on the table, when it's right to negotiate, and then how to actually go about negotiating?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not a big negotiator personally. I tend to just honestly look at, okay, well, let's look at the two parties that are involved and let's look at the leverage dynamic between these two parties. And most of the times it's pretty honest. Like you can, Web3 is a pretty honest place. You have numbers, you have engagement numbers, you have market capitalizations, and if you know your way around these and you have some data points gathered on, okay, last time I did this, I got paid this much. This is best practice. Like you can even ask your friends like what they get paid for type of marketing work, community work. And I think it you can get to a pretty honest, ego-free kind of situation where you just look at numbers and land on what a fair compensation is. And then don't put my thing, the reason I don't like negotiations so much is because I don't like to put the cart in front of the horse. I think you need to be the horse. The cart needs to be behind you. And you need to show what you can do and create a bit of leverage for yourself in the first month that you're working with someone. Like, you know, blow them away. Like, help them grow. And then they'll be happy to work with you and pay you. So I'm not a big negotiator in that sense.
Yeah, no, that's good advice though. I think coming from a position of honesty can help create an environment of honesty. And I think that's the best environment for both parties to walk away like it's a win-win. And right, that's always the goal, right? Creating win-win
Yeah.
scenarios in every collaboration. Um, and you be honest with yourself too, right? Creating that lack of ego is super important, and again, that'll encourage the other party to hopefully come from that same approach as well. um
Yeah,
what's your
because it's to add to that before we head to the next question. It's like I'm not saying you should be ego free at all times by all means. Ego is just a tool. Just like use it whenever you can. That's great. I think in the beginning of a work collaboration, you want to have a situation where both people are excited and they go to sleep at night knowing that, there's trust and they can sleep tight. They don't think twice about, oh, this person, is charging me this much extra. It's so much money. You don't want that situation because then um, you're delaying having a tough conversation by some time. You want to have all the tough conversations ahead of time. So yeah, just make sure that whatever deal you come up with, both people sleep well at night and you can get to work.
that part? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because like you said, you really don't want to be in that position where the other individual or the other team is stressing about the deal that y'all ended up with. You want it to be comfortable, and you want to express yourself in an honest, confident. Lack of ego doesn't mean lack of confidence, but just again, like you said, it's a tool in an honest and confident manner, so that everybody knows what the deal is and what each party is getting out of it, and then you can actually execute. right? And then if you come from an honest perspective or point, you can actually execute on that. Whereas if you don't, it's only a matter of time, right? And that's not fun. That's not fun for anybody. Um, how do you define success in the roles that you've had an opportunity to, or with the teams that you've had an opportunity to contribute to in Web3?
I think in general, success is if you manage to get what you want out of life and out of the opportunity that you got presented with. And it's strongly correlated with intelligence. I think you have so many people that are called intelligent, but then, they're miserable in many ways and unhappy in many ways. And I think we need to include that in the definition of intelligence. Like, can you get what you want out of life? And for me, if I had to look back, the one thing I would do differently and where I feel like I didn't maximize success is I invested a lot in building, branded pages, branded accounts like super spaces, right? But there's always risk associated with it if you have partners and teammates, etc. So in Web3, there's a big risk, execution risk in terms of reputations, in terms of market risk is there. The meta just moves to something completely else. And the 1,000 hours that you've spent building up the page on, SocialFi, all of a sudden it's not hot anymore. It's not SocialFi that's buzzing. It's InfoFi or whatever, right? So then the only thing that's the only constant is your own name and your own page. And by extension, you need to just ruthlessly and unapologetically always invest in that. And that's what I'm kind of coming back to after the sabbatical and now working with Pizza Ninjas. Yes, I will, blow up Pizza Ninjas as much as I can, but I have that awareness in my head that my own page and my own channel is paramount. And vice versa, Pizza Ninjas benefits a lot if I have a bigger channel. And so it's not even something that where anyone ends up losing. It's just, invest in those things that are forever. I think that's how I could put it succinctly.
Yeah, well said. And it's a balance, right? I mean, there's going to be opportunities where it's, you weigh the risk reward and you decide, hey, I'm going to invest time and energy into this page. And that's a risk always. But it's worth noting exactly what you said, right? That your profile is always going to be home base. And so you should always at least consider that, especially when you're deciding whether or not to take on a new venture, whether it be a new page or a new opportunity. Remember that the bigger your page is and the bigger your visibility and your brand is, that's only going to benefit any team that you end up working with anyway. So that should always be the priority. Um, what's your favorite part of working in Web3?
It relates to what I said in the beginning of expressing yourself fully. It feels like you get rewarded exponentially the more you unshackle like what is inside you, especially because you have to be a bit of a showman in this industry. You have to be a bit of an entertainer, performative at times. you know I don't understand people who are like, oh, that's just not me, or like, oh no, that doesn't sound like me. It's like, man, you're a malleable human being. You're a fluid being. You can be whatever you want to be. you know think about the profession of an actor, right? They really understand that. But here, to get some things out of this industry, you gotta mold yourself into whatever is needed at that time. Um and that's a tough task if you have to combine it with authenticity, but you can combine it. And that's what I find an exciting challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I agree with that as well. Like the opportunity to express yourself, and in so many different ways, right? Whether it be with the JPEG communities or whether it be with your on-chain history, right? Or whether it be with the teams you associate with or the events you go to or the content you put out. There's so many different cool ways for you to express yourself to where even if you are somebody where you're listening, you're like, oh, well, that's not me. There's another avenue where you can express yourself and where you will shine doing just that. Well, again, whether it's copywriting, whether it's events, whether it's video, whatever it is, whether it's trading. So you should absolutely lean into that. I mean, that's something that I like to reiterate on this show regularly. Is like sometimes people are coming from Web 2 and they're wondering where their place is in Web 3. And I always like to stress like whatever it is you're already doing in Web 2 is absolutely needed here in Web 3. And you're the best person to bring it because that's what you do. So do exactly that, right? Don't overthink it. Keep things simple. And, that old cliche, stay true to yourself. It's real though, especially here.
Dude,
Um,
and gambler, let me add something to that because something came up to mind now. What I love about Web3, don't you feel sometimes that we are in a bubble that lives in the future? Because there's Twitter, right? And the Twitter context is already a lot, a lot of tech bros, let's say, male dominant, living in the future type of vibe. But then within crypto Twitter, you have these couple of 100,000 people. I don't even know if it's millions of people that hang out here almost every day. And not only do they understand what's better money, right? But they even put Bitcoin, to get yield. They're DeFi and Bitcoin, for example, is like where most of the people in the normal world, they will arrive there maybe in 5, 10, 15 years. We are already, that's part of our day to day, like the language, on chain activity. That's part of our day to day. So that's one thing that I also really, really love because we're just, in many ways, like understanding of what the future brings.
no, that's a fact. And I think that ties into what you said earlier too of like I mean, you said it as a conscious decision, like you're never leaving Web3. But I think it's just kind of like natural to the space that like once you're here, you kind of can't leave because the tech is not going anywhere. And one of my favorite parts about this space is that it actually does feel like we get to rub shoulders or, have the opportunity to send a DM or interact with or learn from literally some of the top people from almost every industry. I mean, whether it's music or tech or finance or art or events or whatever it is, real estate. I mean, in my opinion, the top most forward-thinking individuals from each one of those industry, at least some of them, have to be here in this space because the tech is so applicable and beneficial to every single corner of the world. So you're stuck here. You're stuck here no matter what. If you leave, it's absolutely not going anywhere. So you're just going to be the guy that left when you were already early. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. It feels like we are absolutely, not to sound too pretentious or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it is the future. That's why we're here. That's why we're bullish, right? Because that's exactly what we believe. Um, so I
Dude,
couldn't
this
agree
thing has
more.
grown. This thing has grown faster than mobile adoption. I mean, what do you expect? Where are we going to be in 10 years? Like, do you expect that 3% of the Bitcoin supply is going to be held by countries, or is it going to be 10% or 20%? Don't you think that, institutional adoption is going to be double digits of the entire Bitcoin supply? I think so. I think they're all going to buy our bags. And it's just what the data points to. And that's why I'm here. And I want to be the resource for the next generation. That's a very you see that in many careers in Web 2 as well. The people that are maybe 50, 60, 70 years, they have all this knowledge. They want to pass it on to the next generation. We're here now and at great cost because there's many rugs and you get gray hair a lot faster if you work in Web3. Um, at great cost, we're kind of discovering the Americas so that we can codify it into knowledge, make sense of it, build on top of it, and pass it on to the next generation. So that's what like gets me out of bed. That's what gets me really excited.
Well, shout out to you and everybody out there like you who thinks the same way and is ready to dive in and has been diving in for years already in order to pass that information on to the next generation. Um, every week we try to touch on a certain topic, focus in on a certain part of the getting hired process or the being successful in your role process. And this week it's just the job market in general. So you as an individual who's been in the space for years, you've worked for different teams. What kind of is your gauge on the current job market in Web3? And then like how has that evolved since you first started working in the space?
So I want to preface this by saying that I'm pretty washed because I've been out for 6 months and just now I'm coming back, and it takes some time to get a good grip of what's happening at the moment. One development that I know for a fact we see is the move towards creators of smaller sizes also being rewarded. So I think brands are starting to recognize that it's more efficient to get the message out with, let's say, 50 to 100 creators that might only have 5, 10K followers, but are like specialized in their niche, because those creators tend to have really high trust and high conversion rates. You know, they maybe haven't been out in crypto Twitter for many, many metas just yet, which means they're likely they haven't been rotating this much, right, between metas and niches. So that means there's more return on investment if they spend their ad money or their KOL money on those smaller creators. So that's something that I enjoy, because when I got into the space, you had these like, I mean, you still have them, right? But like the propped up fake 50K, 100K follower accounts that just spew nonsense and that would get deals. And I think that's just so inefficient that most brands these days just know that and don't spend money either way. Um, and I think that that was an important development. You know, it's not complete yet. Like you still have those propped up fake engagement guys that get the deals, but it feels like it got more fair, and InfoFi also made a good dent in that. So that's one big development that I see.
Yeah, it's a good thing to highlight too, right? Because how much more opportunity is that creating for the average individual on CT? Like, and how much more like optimistic can you be knowing that like the barrier to entry is at that much smaller, and like the path to working in Web3 and getting rewarded is that much more accessible. I mean, there's a bunch of examples of what you just talked about. Like, I forget which team it was first, but now there's a number of teams doing it. I think the first team I heard doing it was Abstract, of when they started, but they might have not been the first. But when they started rewarding clippers, right, for just clipping content, putting it on the timeline, like I think that is such a dope initiative that we've seen other teams start to adopt as well. That again just makes the path towards a legitimate role in the space that much more accessible. And even if it's not an official role, you can still create opportunity for yourself without actually being officially on any team yet, while also building your portfolio for when it's time to kind of have that conversation. Um, we're just about ready to wrap up here. You've been dropping nothing but gems. So shout out to you, Fred. But I want to ask a couple more. Like, what are some top lessons that you've learned since getting started working in Web3?
Dude, so reputation risk. I was the reason I thought so much before giving this answer is because I'm trying to distill what's the most important lesson. And I think I'm landing on reputation risk being like the most important lesson, because you have so many characters, even people that I see on the timeline, where I have a memory bank on the shady shit they've done in the past, and that just blacklists them from a ton of opportunity and a ton of wealth. And so it's this kind of short-term thinking that you need to cancel out, and rather do an extra little step in background checking anyone you're entering a collaboration with, because it's important. And if they have nothing to hide and they did nothing shady, then a friend of theirs or a contact of theirs we'll probably hype them up and recommend them. And if not, you'll find out. So yeah, man, that checking people's past, almost do like your own little reference check of people that you will spend a lot of resources with. That's probably the most important thing, in my opinion.
That's real. That's real. And a lot of people, a lot of people like to say that CT has the memory of a goldfish, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. But I think it's important not to allow that idea, which again, there's a lot of truth in it, to allow that to to let you think that reputation is not important, right? Because it is. It's like a two-sided coin. Like yeah, CT has the memory of a goldfish, but it's also, you got to understand that the people who remember, some of them are going to be people you want to collaborate with, right? And honestly, I prefer to collaborate with people that do keep a memory bank like that, because it tells me that you're conscious of like who you surround yourself with and how your brand is affected and your audience is affected by the people that you collaborate with as well. That's super important. I mean, everything we do on this platform and any platform you're on, you got to consider your maybe constituents isn't the right word, but your peoples, man. You got to look out for your peoples. That's why we're here. Whether that's the team you're working with, whether that's the people that consume your content, or whether it's just your friends and family right around you. Like, if you're not considerate of that, I don't want to work with you, and I don't want to work with people that aren't considerate of that as well. So things to
Yeah,
think
you're
about.
right. It's like you are the network and you matter. So act accordingly is basically it, right? And then also there's so much noise, so you got to curate everything you consume. You got to work with lists all the time. You need to work with lists. Otherwise you get so much trash input and you don't want trash input.
Oh, lists are alpha. Lists are alpha for sure. Um, you've dropped a ton of game. To wrap it up in like 30 seconds or a minute, what top of mind advice would you give to people listening who are looking to either get started working in Web3 or to advance their career in Web3?
I think we covered such a broad set of topics today. And, we started off by saying you have to be proactive, put your best foot forward, deliver proof of work first. All those good things, I think are very, very important. But at the end of the day, man, I'm just some freaking dude with a ninja PFP on Twitter. So don't take advice from me, but build your own fucking way and learn and then apply what you learn in real life. I think that's the major, major alpha. It's like, fuck all these other people, fuck my advice. Like, make your own advice. You got to have a really strong personality in this space. So build that.
Boom, you got to jump in the swim, man. Get your hands dirty. Get started. Couldn't have said it better myself, man. Fred, you're a legend. I've been looking forward to sitting down and having this conversation with you for a while. I knew it was going to be a good one. For the people listening, how can we better support you and or the teams that you're working with?
Come check out some of the stuff we do, man. We got events, we got spaces every week. We got a fun little token that I think is undervalued. Um, Probably can't say that here publicly, but I am still saying that. I think there's only one Bitcoin, and there's a few memes on Bitcoin that everybody knows, and pizza is one of those. And yeah, if you want to get into Bitcoin memes, now is a good time for that. So check that out. The pizza token, you can find it on our official channels on at Pizza Ninjas. And yeah, thanks for having me over, man. I think if you or anyone else in the space that's listening, if you want to chat it out, want to do another space, I'm always just a DM away. And yeah, bro, I think the space needs people like you who really are proactive in getting events like these together and putting content out. So I applaud you for that and appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man, and right back at you. I applaud you as well. Please, if you're listening, show love to Fred. Give him a follow. Check out his content. He's constantly putting out solid content every week, whether it's his streams or educational info on the ninjas. Check him out. Check out the Pizza Ninjas. Shout out to everything they're cooking. I'm a big fan of that team over there. And check us out next week. We're here every Wednesday, every Friday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Shout out to Angeliki. Shout out to Brian. Shout out to Sunwin Moon. Shout out to Tome. Shout out to anybody listening to recording, whether that's here on X, on Spotify, or on YouTube. We appreciate you. We're rooting for you, and we'll be back soon. Take care, everybody.